Hi guys, and what is up? Welcome to another episode of Chapter 1 Book Reviews, and today I'll be doing a book review on something that's very special to me. And you may or may not have guessed. If you have guessed, congratulations, you can now read minds. If you haven't, that's okay, because you don't need to read minds. And it is actually The Hound of Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Probably my personal favorite book of all the Sherlock Holmes detective books, and this one was also because this not only was it my favorite, it was one of the first classics that I read, and it was one that I actually reread a couple of times, so I definitely really enjoyed this book. And I'm just here to share my thoughts on the book and do a brief summary of it with you. So this book, first of all, is warning. There are creepy images, like this hellhound, for example. There's a lot of detail in this book, and that's just something that I want to know before I even start our summary. This book has a lot of detail, which is something that I really enjoy, but for people who don't necessarily just want a fast-paced book, you might not exactly want to read this, because this does have a lot of conversation between characters, dialogue, and a lot of detail. So let's get right into a summary. So basically, Sir Charles Baskerville, the owner of the estate, is found dead on his grounds, and there's trace marks of a hound. And the locals believe that it's a legend of the Hound of Baskervilles, which is portrayed in this image. It's a glowing hellhound with huge fangs and powerful, muscles, and rips apart. And the legend is that the original Baskervilles, one of the early settlers of the Baskerville family, was hunting one of the dogs, but one of the dogs went astray and it became known as the Hound of Baskervilles. Now, Sherlock Holmes is brought from his comfortable grounds with his fellow detective Watson all the way to here to solve the mystery. Sherlock knows that there must be a more rational explanation, so he sets out to find out. But the real question is, can he find it before the hellhound finds him? If the hellhound is real, of course. So I will not spoil the ending because it is so great, and I absolutely was dying to hear the ending after I read most of this book. So it would be such a shame to spoil it for you, because that is so what kept me going, and that's a great part of this book. So let's get right into my thoughts about the book. I definitely love this book. As I said, there's a lot of detail, and the character development is really good. Although there is no major difference between Sherlock from and the end, Sherlock is such an interesting character. He smokes cigars. Sometimes he has a bit of a temper fit, but he's so brilliant. He knows, I see you're a cigar man because of some marks on his hand, or because when someone walks in, he can see right through them. And I just love having these dialogues. For those readers who just can't stand dialogue, don't read this. But even if you just dislike dialogue, even if you just dislike a lot of talking in this book, still read it, because this dialogue, I can pretty much guarantee, unless you're a great classic reader and you still hate dialogue, I think this will probably change your opinion on the dialogue between characters, because the talk is so great, and I love it when Sherlock just goes, "Wow, I see you're some sort of person," and that guy's like, "Did you read my mind?" And this is hilarious, and I absolutely love that aspect of the book. But there is a lot of action, and it is somewhat creepy, because this is a very vivid book. I remember, it describes the Hound of Baskervilles with powerful rippling muscles and flaming eyes. So it's really, I love that part, because one thing I love about reading is when you can picture all the images in your head, and that's something that really helped me in this book. Also, the characters are very believable. Sherlock Holmes, of course, does have his weaknesses. I sort of would say he's a bit arrogant even sometimes to Watson, but he does have his weaknesses. So does Watson. So does everybody in this book. And I found that extremely interesting. And also, they did such a great job of never letting you know until the end what really happened. There was no way I could have predicted the ending. Oh my god, I have to hold myself back on this part, because I really do not want to spoil this book. But a lot of the characters are very intriguing. Some of them, like at the start, I sort of suspected that Charles Baskerville faked his death. Oh, oops, I just spoiled that part. See, now you know Charles Baskerville didn't fake his death. But the thing is, I'm sorry, I don't really want to go too far because I might accidentally spoil something else. But the thing is, my point is, all of these characters are so interesting, you have no idea who's the culprit here. And also, there's a lot of clues. So like, sometimes they're like, dang it, the culprit's in London. We have to get the taxi driver that was here 12 o'clock on the same day. He was the one who organized the attack. So they go to London and then they find the taxi driver who isn't there. And the whole thing is, it's like, think of it as a spider web that you can't see. Or, no. Yes, something nice. A rose that's in a spider web that you can't see. And it slowly unravels with a network of clues. And I just love it to go on the journey with Sherlock to find. And when I was reading this book, I took notes like, I think this is going to be the culprit. New development, he's not going to be the culprit. And that's something that's really fun. But when reading this book, be prepared to be sort of, I would recommend for this book, it's super entertaining. It's definitely not dry, even though it is. A lot of people think classical reading is dry, especially kids. This is not dry at all. There is so much adventure in this book. I think most kids will absolutely love this. But there's an overwhelming lot of personality and characters that I think that you should probably write it down. You would definitely get more from this book. So overall, that's my thoughts on the book. What are some weaknesses with the book? Well, to be fair, during its time, this book wasn't exactly considered high-level reading. It was more considered the average person reading, farmers even. But the Iliad wasn't considered high-level reading at its time either, so what can I say? But, so this is, as I said, even if you do think this is boring, it's not. And in conclusion, this book, very thick detail, a lot of good character personality, and even though the characters don't change until the end, you can feel each of the characters as if you were them right there. So that's something this book did absolutely great. Lots of vivid details, I said, good character personality, keeps you guessing throughout the whole book. You never know who the bad guy really is. And basically that's it for this book. Definitely very vivid descriptions too. So, I think I got a bit overwhelmed there, but as again, this book is special to me. It's one of my favorite books of all time. I would definitely recommend it. This is one of the only books I would give 5 stars out of 5. I know, this is like one of the first times I give 5 out of 5. So this is definitely something I would recommend for people of all ages to read this if you haven't. It's a great book. Okay, thank you very much for watching Chapter 1 and hope you have a nice day.